I want to introduce to you a dynamic brother, a brother, as we say, from up top. Y'all know what up top is, right? Yes, up top from the Connecticut area, but he's been down here in Atlanta organizing, real strong all over the city, particularly in the West End. He has worked and built different organizations, but focused on the bread and butter issues of today. So he hasn't just been a guy that just wrote a book, and he has a book called Building a People's Army, but he's also done work on a daily basis and works in a community where Jamil Al-Amin built a community. And so I want to bring to you a brother who is strong and focused and is going to keep everybody on task and keep the minutes flowing. He will serve as our moderator, Brother Kalonji from the FTP movement. Brother Kalonji, Changa, give it up.
Peace, how's everybody today? Peace, how's everybody today? Okay, it's not one of those, the normal little two steps where you go and you just listen to some people and you leave and there was some good speeches and that was it. That's not the type of program we're gonna have here today. How many of y'all tired of being brutalized by the police and seeing our people gunned down in the streets? Our brother, attorney Mawuli Davis, he mentioned that it is streaming live now on people's TV. So this is what I need you to do, right? How many of y'all have cell phones? How many of y'all are on Facebook? Twitter? This is what we need you to do, because what we have in here today is a very powerful piece, and you have some people that are on this stage here today that I am humbled to, first of all, even be in the midst of. I would be happy sitting in the audience listening to what it is they had to say. So I need you all to take a picture of these folks right here, put it on Facebook and say that watchpeoplestv.org because of the fact that you're going to learn something today. Y'all cool with that?
Yes, sir.
Clap your hands if you're African. This is how we rocking here today. I'm the moderator, the brother mentioned. We have 4 speakers here today. One of them is en route, our sister Cynthia McKinney. What I'm going to do is I'm going to announce each person. They're going to drop it for about 15 minutes. They're going to be sharp and concise each. And after they're finished, we're going to open it up for Q&A. We're going to ask that no one interrupts any of the speakers. If you disagree with something, then be courteous enough to wait till it's time to deal with the Q&A. If not, we do have security, and they will have no problems with showing you exactly where the exit is. All right? But we're going to have fun here tonight, right? And we're going to organize. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name the folks, and then I'm going to introduce them as they come up. To my left, we have the first person here, we have Ward Churchill. Give it up for our brother Ward Churchill. To his left, we have Dhoruba Bin Wahad. And to his left, we have brother Watani Tyiemba. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the left and I'm going to work my way back, if that's all right with y'all, to the far left. This first brother is not only an activist, he's a leader in our community. He's from the New African People's Organization. He's also a leader in the Malcolm X Grassroots organization, right? His track record and his bio is so extensive that really me giving you a little bit of it won't even be enough to really cover what it is he does and has done. He's worked with people like Imam Jamil Al-Amin on his case, formerly H. Rap Brown. He's also worked with our brother Kamal Siddiqui on his case, Dr. Matula Shakur, and a number of other different political prisoners. Also, for you hip-hop fans, he was the manager of Tupac Shakur. Okay? I want y'all to give a strong round of applause for our brother Watani Tyiemba.
Good evening. They put the young brother up first. Y'all saw that, right? I'm not sure if they set us like that intentionally, but I know they all got age on me. You know, I think we're here to talk about a very important issue. I know I only have a few minutes to frame it. I think Brother Mawuli said frame it in 5 to 7 minutes. But let me talk a little bit about the police. We understand where police came from. I grew up in Los Angeles, and I used to see on the side of the car, and probably in most cities too, it says to protect and serve. Is that right? How many else other cities are like that, right? Who are they protecting and serving, people? Say that loud. It was designed to protect the rich. There's no doubt about it, right? We understand that. It came over from Europe, then it came over here, and that's what they're doing. And they're continuing that. Let's look back through a little history. In August of 1965, I lived in Los Angeles, California, and there was called a Watch Rebellion. You know why that rebellion started? Based upon police brutality. Most of the rebellions, if you look across the country, that's what they were started by, right? And abuse of power. See, sometimes you have to look at people that are organized in that fashion, and power goes to their head. They become a gang, or they develop a gang mentality. So some of the ways we counteracted that, and we'll go through it further, was that immediately after the Watch Rebellion, we started a Community Alert Patrol, which was one of the first police monitoring systems. I know you know the Black Panther Party did that in 1966, but in 65, Watch started doing it. People came together and said, look, we need to monitor. We need to police the police. You know, somebody needs to be hold them accountable, is that right? Because majority of them at that time didn't live in our community. In fact, in Los Angeles, it was a strategy to recruit from the South and bring them in. How do we know about police brutality? Because we lived that, right?
Right.
If it wasn't for the cameras during Rodney King, it would have just been another incident, right?
That's right.
Today, everybody has a camera. And I watched Brother Dhoruba from the video camera they did. Now, another thing that I do, Brother Kalonji said I have a lot of different jobs. I'm a classroom and firearms instructor, and one of the things I teach is the use of force, primarily law enforcement and security officers and private investigators. Do you know when force is generally used? Two major times it's used, and one is arrest or defense of self and another, all right? How many of y'all saw the video? If you haven't, try to go ahead and Google it. I think it's still up, pretty sure it's still live, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. What you saw, and you heard my brother describe, and the lawyers will deal with the legal part of that, was that law enforcement showed up with guns in hand because they heard there was a burglary in progress. Now, how many of y'all understand the types of crimes that exist? A burglary is what? A lawyer? It's entering a building with the intent to commit a felony within, right?
That's right.
In other words, what you're trying to do is generally take something. Y'all with me?
Yeah.
Now, I understood that this building was empty, or the house was empty. So what was he taking?
Right.
And so why did you show up with the gun? Force has talked about two principles. It says reasonable and necessary. You're using the force that's necessary to effectuate an arrest or to control something, right?
That's right.
And it has to be based upon a reasonable person's standard. Was the force used reasonable? You saw an individual sitting on the porch, and then you saw him snapped up off the porch and thrown into the wall.
Right.
Were they trying to put him under arrest? Was he being combative? I ask these questions rhetorically because you saw the video, you know it. They didn't think anybody was videoing. So I think that what we've learned from this is that we all have to be a part of these solutions. And in 1843, Henry Howard Garnett says, let your model be resistance. You can get this whole pamphlet from the Malcolm X Grassroots website. It's called mxgm.org. It says Operation Ghetto Storm. Also the same website says that at the end of 2012, 313 black people were killed by police, security guards, and vigilantes every 28 hours.
Wow.
Every 28 hours, we were killed. Black, brown, Asian, people of color, and poor people, right? So we see historically that this problem has existed, but how do we fight it? By resisting, either monitoring, people's civilian review boards, and our chapter in New York here we call Cop Watch. Cop Watch is nothing more than the Community Alert Patrol and what other people did. You got a Cop Watch here. And I think we should also be aware that one organization can't do it by itself, right? If one organization was the answer, we wouldn't have these problems. So we have to learn how to work in coalitions, work around united fronts, and how to build, right? How to organize. We also run a thing called New African Security Union. Basically, New African Militia is a coalition of community people that says we're going to teach you how to secure yourself, to secure your homes, secure your person. And those classes should be done throughout the community. Did you realize that if a community that's armed and also has the ability to secure, it kind of dissuades people from running up in there, right? Let's think about that. If the cat that throws you on the ground, let me know about what time, man. The cat that throws you on the ground and throws your head to the wall goes to the same church you do, or you see him at the grocery store.
That's it.
What do you think happens then? There's a different attitude, right?
That's right.
I believe that people have to be held accountable, because if they're part of your community and you got to see them later on, they're going to be held in check. Or when they go to the store and they say, well, to the neighborhood barbecue today, you bet not show your butt up there, because the people got something for you, right? One other thing I want to just try to do is talk about your rights. You have human rights. You have God-given rights. You have a right to self-defense. Y'all understand that? Did you understand that if you are being wrongly abused by law enforcement, you have the right to defend yourself?
Yes, sir.
How many of y'all know that?
Yes, sir.
I represented a young man who had been primarily high-profile cases, death penalty cases, in DeKalb County. He was convicted of killing 2 DeKalb County police officers. A little bitty brother. Now, he was in the trap. He was dirty. He had that thing on him. Okay, I'm talking to him, speak English.
Right.
He was at the drug house. He had his weapon on him, and the police started beating on him. They asked him for his identification. He didn't have it. He forgot it. And they started tussling with him. Threw him to the ground. Pulled out the aspartame, which is called expandable baton, and started beating on him. Young man turned over and dumped on him and dropped one right there. The other one died at grave. We call that self-defense. Because if they had continued to beat him with that baton and doing the things he was going to do, he was in danger of losing his life, right? Well, we lost the case, but these was dirty cops, these was bullets with badges. And we felt justified in going forward with that case. The jury didn't quite see it the same way, but all the things were right there. All the things was there that says, at what point did you decide you're going to protect yourself?
That's right.
Who has the right to take your life? Nobody. Who gave you this life was whatever creative name you want to say, those were God-given rights. So they said I can frame this, and I hope I framed it in a way that we can go to the next speakers, but let our model be resistance. Let's organize. Let's talk about tools and strategies that we can utilize to say you cannot just abuse our people and get away with it. There are many different ways to fight. I'm not telling you to go out and just fight police. I'm telling you to fight whatever way you see it. It means that you got your video camera, your camera phone, you're fighting. That brother that actually took that video saw something that was not right.
That's right.
Think about it. What made him take that photo? Or take that video? He saw something that was not right.
Whatever the state's for, we against, and whatever the state is against, we for. How's that? Anyway, don't even trip. Is everybody all right? Y'all looking half dead. I know my man said that we was in a church, you know what I'm saying? This ain't one of those, European churches where you just sit down and wait till it's time to pass the plate and all that. You know, we make joyful noises in there. Clap your hands if you hear. Today, we in a Nat Turner church, you know what I mean? So get hip to it. No doubt, Denmark VC, Bookman, folks like that. This next brother right here, we're gonna skip around because we're going to add some flow with it. This next brother right here is an author. He's a professor. He was a professor at University of Colorado, Bozeman. And due to his kind words and his kind presentation, they loved him so much that they asked him to go play on the highway. But this brother right here, man, he's a real serious dude, man. When you talk about counterinsurgency, or Cointelpro, you really can't have serious dialogue without mentioning this brother's name in regards to his research. Now, he has a couple books that are my favorite books. One is Agent of Repression, and one is the Cointelpro papers. I'm looking at my phone because these titles, man, they so long that I know I'm gonna mess it up. But Agents of Repression is Agent of Repression, the FBI's secret war against the Black Panther Party and the American Indian movement. Is one of his books. How many of y'all have read that book, or how many of you own that book? Okay. If you call yourself a freedom fighter, that's a book that should be on your list. The second book, well, he wrote several books, but the second book is the Cointelpro Papers, Documents from the FBI's Secret War Against Domestic Dissent. Okay, so you can tell by those titles that he's probably not the most friendliest guy when it comes to this government. I want y'all to give a strong round of applause for our brother, Ward Churchill.
CO? Oh, Cedru. That was Cherokee. Greeting. The response to CO is OCO. This is Cherokee land. I've got 5 to 7 minutes too to talk about Cointelpro. No way really getting to that in 5 to 7 minutes, but we got Q&A, and we've got Dhoruba Bin Wahad, and we've got Cynthia McKinney also, both of whom have some considerable experience in different ways with Cointelpro. But I just want to say, I've been doing this one way or another for 40 years. We circle in Iraq. So I got to say a couple things, actually frame police and frame Cointelpro, and one is brutality is the business of the police. I don't see that as an abuse of power. Power is the abuse. And they are simply serving power, and they're serving power in a particular way because it's a particular form of power. The function of the police in this society. We could talk about other societies, but we're not in those societies. We are in this one, so let's talk about this one. The function of the police in this society is to compel people to remain basically docile in the face of things which are intolerably unjust. That's it. That is not to say that every single cop that you will meet individually as a person ends up to be Heinrich Himmler. But they all know the Heinrich Himmlers are the police department, and they do nothing to deter them. There's that blue wall of silence, the omerta, if you will. They are all covering the actions of the people who are the serious actors. Not everybody has the aptitude for it. The function that they're protecting is the transfer of wealth from brown people, red people, yellow people, black people, to white people. That's first. And then they're overseeing the transfer within the white community from the so-called poor whites to the not so poor whites to the, you see how that percolates. Well, if you're on the bottom of that in the black, brown, yellow, red communities, you want to change the situation, and their job is to prevent it. So they send messages, and you've got other organizations, vigilante organizations. The Klan comes to mind. The purpose of the Klan fundamentally was to send messages to people that you, like everything, have a place. Do not presume to change that place or to attempt to change that place. Nonetheless, we are conscious beings. There's been some discussion of that. We are beings with a consciousness who views us with a moral sense and a sense of obligation not only to ourselves and those around us to fulfill our rights, our inherent rights, our natural rights, our human rights. We're going to change that situation. Watts was mentioned. The so-called ghetto rebellions of the 1960s was mentioned. The standard techniques of sending the message to the institutional structure of the police were insufficient at that time. People were moving, and certain people had the ability to take those who were moving and catalyze them, give them vision, give them direction, move it in a construction sort of way that went from natural resistance to an unjust situation to a revolutionary effort to transform it. That's where Cointelpro comes in. Cointelpro is an acronym, or really a cryptonym, because the program was secret at the time, put together under the auspices of FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. But that Cointelpro, odd word, that cryptonym, what that stands for is Counterintelligence Program. CO from the counter, INT-EL from the intelligence program pro. Okay? Sounds kind of innocuous on its face, but this was a domestically focused counterintelligence program, meaning it was taking the citizens of the United States, those who were getting unruly, who were getting uppity, as they've been known to say in certain circles, particularly those who were capable of giving that shape, giving that vision, articulating, mobilizing people in constructive, organized sorts of ways rather than just spontaneously responding. They were giving the potential to affect a revolutionary transformation of the society to change everybody's place within it. Those key individuals, they were called key individuals, were targeted in various ways for what the FBI called neutralization. That was their term. It's not one that I'm applying. To neutralize, to take them out of action, to make them unable to do what it was that caused them to be targeted. To take the key organizers out of the equation so that you would see this sort of dissipation. Like you got an ice sculpture and it melts. You got shape to the movement, and if you can take out the key activists, that's the idea. The key organizers, those who have the vision and the power to articulate it in ways that inspire people, you can do that. You can put it right back to where it was before. You can take the revolution out of the revolution. You can take the potential for change out of the potential for change, or at least the potential. I would argue as a prisoner of war. Because you understand, these are not standard police techniques. These are low-intensity warfare techniques. They were put together by a couple of British specialists, Frank Kitson and another colleague. I could cite the books, but they're hard to get at this point. But they were used in Kenya, they were used in Malaya, and they were used in Northern Ireland, and they were studied by the FBI and put to work here. They have counterintelligence. That's a misnomer. It's counterinsurgency specialists. And that was who was unleashed to destroy the Black Liberation Movement. One target here. We got a whole list of others. 2 keys from Atlanta, named in documents as potential Black Messiah. Kwame Ture, well, Stokely Carmichael at the time, was operating right here in Atlanta. Okay? He was supposed to be one of the #1 Cointelpro targets. H. Rat Brown, who's Jamel Al-Amin, he's another. You may note that it didn't stop. Cointelpro officially, secretly, began in 1956, and after it was exposed in 1971, it was abruptly terminated. Well, they stopped calling it that. They changed the terminology. It goes forward now. They used to talk about black extremists, white extremists. They even talked about Klan extremists, but they had a completely different kind of program to co-opt them, use them in a more effective manner. They wanted to destroy the movements on our particular side of the equation, and Klan was one of the counters that they used in that regard. So there was a Cointelpro against the Klan, but it's radically different from the Cointelpros against the Black Liberation Movement, against the so-called New Left, against the CP, against the Socialist Workers' Party. And although they had stopped calling it that by the time they got to us, the American Indian Movement, which is I was a part of as well. There were other targets. Each of them was handled essentially the same way. The reason I said it didn't stop when I had mentioned Jamel Al-Amin is the nature of the case to put him out there in Florence, Colorado. They're still working on neutralizing people. Well, they don't call them extremists anymore. Along about 1972, the nomenclature shifted to terrorists, so it became counterterrorism programs rather than counterintelligence programs. Rather than political, it was action. Ideology didn't figure in. Well, you can ask a Muslim in New York whether ideology figures in now. The FBI coordinated the police agencies around the country. Yeah, the reason I mentioned New York in this particular connection, and this is another, you can see Cointelpro live, had a Bureau of Strategic Services, it was called, special unit within the New York Police Department that worked with the Cointelpro section of the FBI. That's who went after the Black Panther Party. Okay, after Cointelpro was suspended, there was a court order, a lawsuit, a court order on shoot. Okay, Voss supposedly was disbanded and they stopped doing what they were doing. Well, you essentially got boss under another name, and that's who's been going after the Muslims in New York of late. So all those things that were fought against 40 years ago, they're right back, been renamed. They have to be recognized for what they are. Just because they call it something besides Cointelpro, if it acts like Cointelpro, feels like Cointelpro, has the same results as Cointelpro, hey, guess what? It's Cointelpro.
Coming up next, this next sister, I first was introduced to her probably watching C-SPAN or something. And I think she was giving, what's that clown the business? There's so many clowns she gave the business. Oh yeah, Mr. Donald Jackass Rumsfeld, she was giving him the business live on TV. I know you're a punk. Y'all, when I said it, y'all look like, you talking about Donald Rumsfeld? Donald Rumsfeld, these people are cowards. And that's why they roll the way they roll. That's why the police murder and brutalize us. That's why they could kill a 92-year-old Katherine Johnson. You understand what I'm saying? That's why they could flashbang a 19-month-old baby, because they're cowards. But we ain't gonna get into that right now. But I was first introduced to this sister, woke up early in the morning, and I see this black woman, because I wasn't into electoral politics at all. You know what I'm saying? The welfare poet said we didn't vote to get into this and we won't vote to get out. So we weren't down for none of that. But I saw this sister on there, she was all natural and everything, and she was giving this clown the business, and he couldn't shake her, no matter which way he went. And I was like, man, that is a bad sister right there. I might even vote. The sister right here, she's been in the community with us, she's been in the streets with us. Not just, you know, a lot of these cats, you know, they show up at the rallies, they throw the fist up, make a bunch of noise, you vote for them, and you get the same results you've been getting. You know, like a Kasim Reed. Like a Barack Obama. I want to introduce y'all to this sister who was a Congresswoman. And not only that, she ran for Green Party president, and we call her the People's President. I want y'all to give it up for the Honorable Cynthia McKinney.
Thank you, Kalonji. Thank you very much. You've heard from the master on counterintelligence when you heard from Ward Churchill. And I see his lovely wife, not Sue, sitting out in the back. And so I think maybe I just pick up a little bit where Ward left off. I have Ward's 2 books, at least I know he's got 2 books, Agents of Repression and the Cointelpro Papers. If you don't have those books, you need to buy them. Those books tell you everything you need to know about about the United States government and what it will do to people who exercise their rights according to the Bill of Rights that we all are supposed to have. We don't have it anymore because, of course, the War of Terror has shredded the Bill of Rights. And one aspect of that I want to just mention is this doctrine that was supposed to separate law enforcement from the military. And it's called posse comitatus. And then in federal legislation, an exception was made to posse comitatus for the drug war. But now we all know about the drug war, don't we? We know who was dealing drugs with whom, because it has been written up by the House Intelligence Committee under Bill Clinton when Mike Rupert went to a town hall meeting very much like this one on drugs in Los Angeles, and Mike Rupert, former Los Angeles Police Department agent, said that the United States was running drugs into the black community. Mike Rupert recently committed suicide, which is just incredible because he was my friend. But the drug war was the first exception to posse comitatus. But then the problem with the drug war was that it was ubiquitous. It was everywhere. And so that meant that a major exception to the Bill of Rights, to our rights to assemble, to dissent, to speak, to have protection from police assault, well, of course, we were targeted in the drug war, and so that meant that we were exempted from that federal law. Now, there's the war on terror, and I presided over a Congress, I was at a Congress, that made another exemption in the militarization of the police for the drug war. So now either you're on drugs or you're a suspect of using or dealing drugs and therefore you don't have protection of the law, or you're a terrorist and you don't have protection of the law. And then the law went crazy. These people went crazy in legislation with the Patriot Act, the funding of the War Against Terror Act, the Secret Evidence Act, you name it, and all of the things that Ward talked about in the Cointelpro program that Senator Frank Church said were illegal and un-American. Well, they're not quite so illegal anymore. And for us, we know from genocide to enslavement, Jim Crow, you name it, we've all known that there were very many people in the United States who were un-American, and that was at the highest level of authority. So what we have come to see and experience generation after generation now is abuse of authority, such that today we have agents who represent the government, and that government is out of control. Now, you know that I have had a little experience with the military. It wasn't our military, it was the Israeli military. And those guys, we were on the boat, and those guys were all decked out with all this fancy, and then they had the masks on, the ski masks on, and they had all this equipment and everything, and they came and they kidnapped us, and then I spent 7 days in an Israeli prison. But when I was in Denver at the Democratic Convention, and I was outside, not inside now, because I was outside protesting all the wars that were funded by the Democrats. All right. And the Denver police looked just like those military, those Israeli military. That's right. And now, if you look at U.S. police forces all over the country, you can't distinguish whether they are the military or if they are a police force. The police force are to protect and serve. They're not to kill. But the police force has become an agent of death in our community, and that's what the Black Panthers were all about anyway, was protecting our community from this police force. I saw a picture on the internet just the other day where now a police department is getting a tank. A tank. Now, who are they going to use that against? They're going to use that tape against us. Because we're going to be out there protesting for our rights, trying to find a way to get more representation out of these 535 people up in Washington and the folk who are down under the Gold Dome right here in Atlanta, just a few blocks away from here. We're going to be out there and we're going to be subjected to the artillery and the even tanks of these people. So at any rate, as I said, the government is out of control. And it's been out of control for a long time. And we also had, which Ward wrote about in the Cointelpro papers, we had an effort that was organized by the government to stop our defense of our rights. And there were some people who participated on the side of the government against us, and they were from our community. So now we have to understand that. Don't be looking like this, like you're surprised. You should not be surprised. Because if we read those documents, we will know from Marcus Garvey. I'm talking about the turn of the 20th century, that J. Edgar Hoover wrote a document and said, too bad he hasn't committed a crime that we can deport him. But guess what J. Edgar Hoover did? He got a black man to stand right next to Marcus Garvey and turn it in. That's right. And we also know that the first person who touched the body of Malcolm X was what? Okay. The first person who touched the body of Martin Luther King Jr. was who? Black man who was at the CIA. No, was not Jesse Jackson. A CIA agent who was up there on the balcony. You agent. Black man. And of course, with Fred Hampton, that concluded that decade of assassinations, regime change on Black America, I call it. When that would not have been possible had a black man who was head of security not drawn the floor plan to Fred Hampton's house, right? So now we have a problem from outside of the community with a government that has gone stark raving mad, but we also have a problem on the inside of our community that we must deal with. Now, and then I'm going to say two more points and then I'm going to sit down. One is after Hurricane Katrina. And there was the shooting of the young boy on one of the bridges, and then there was a wholesale stopping of people who were trying to cross the bridge to get to the other side. And that was because the other side of the bridge was a suburb, and they didn't want all those black people coming across the bridge, coming into their town. And so the sheriff had instructed the people, the marshals to fire in the air so that the people couldn't get to the other side of the bridge. So what I did was I introduced legislation, and I said, okay, you deny the civil rights to people and therefore you will not get any federal funds. You won't get access to anything that the federal government has. Now that's punishment. That's a language that these folk can understand. We have to speak in the language that they understand. And step and fetch it is not the language that they understand. But we have a lot of step and fetch it people who represent us. And that's got to stop. So time is out for people who talk real smooth with the community and then cower in the face of power. We should not have to have another Al Sharpton moment in this country. We have over 40 black members of Congress. We can get any legislation passed we want to if we start operating other than Politics 101. And Vincent Fort should not be alone when he is drafting legislation. The Georgia Legislative Black Caucus boasts that it is the largest black caucus in the nation. Are they still the largest? So now if we practiced Politics 102 instead of 101, then we wouldn't have these moments. And so now I've been up against the best of them. So they've taught me the PhD in politics. And I don't intend, as I'm working on my PhD anyway, I don't intend to let that PhD in politics go to waste. So, just wait till I finish. Hopefully that'll be before the end of this year. Now the second and the last thing that I want to mention is there's another kind of language that these police departments understand. And Dhoruba knows how to deliver it to them. And he's got some great lawyers, and he should sue them. Clayton County needs to pay like they ain't never paid before. So, and I know Dhoruba knows how to take care of that business. So, I'm happy that so many people came and that we have so many young people too. I'm happy about that. I'm not happy that these things keep happening and folk keep taking to the streets when we have, between the Congressional Black Caucus and the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus, we have 100 elected officials who could take care of this kind of business for us. But we allow them to become television characters rather than the representatives that they are supposed to be. Thank you.
It feels good to be on the panel and not be the only bad guy. Give it up again for our sister, Cynthia McKinney. Couple of things real quick. We've talked about counterinsurgency and Cointelpro. Baba Watani gave us some tips on how to deal with the police. We had Sister Cynthia just come from the electoral side, which is very important because of the fact that one of the things that we're looking to do with our organization is to create political action clubs. You know what I'm saying? And get, since in Georgia, felons can vote, correct? We want to get these folks, we want to get our brothers and sisters to vote some of these fools out and put some of our people up in there. Okay?
Provided they complete their service,
We're going to make sure they complete their service. We just look like this. I also want to say, because of the fact that, in real time, the police are somewhere in Atlanta beating the hell out of someone right now.
That's right.
Someone's being gunned down somewhere here in America right now. Brutalized someone's grandmother. I understand they killed a 93-year-old lady in Texas a few weeks ago. Of course, you know about the 19-month-old baby who is being represented by Brother Mawuli, Brother Marcus Coleman, and a number of other folks. But one thing I want to say too, man, is our brother, we often quote El-Hajj Malik Shabazz, formerly Malcolm X, right? One of the things he said is that every black man or every black person should learn a martial art. So I want to acknowledge one of my teachers, Balagoon Ojatade here, who is the director of the African Martial Arts Institute. He's also an author of a number of different books. One is African Martial Arts, Discovering the Warrior Within. Okay, so I'm saying that not to just give him some props, because they don't care nothing about no props or whatever. He beat props ass all day. But anyway, I'm saying that because of the fact that you need to get with somebody on some martial arts. You can't walk around talking about, warrior, you tough, and what you're going to do when the police come, when these militias are training every day. When the state is training to beat you upside your head and brutalize you on a daily basis. So if you are physically able, which it looks like everybody in this room is pretty physically able, if you can lift a fork or a spoon, then you get down in the classroom. Also want to acknowledge a couple other folks. My brother Raheem Shabazz, he has a new film out called Elementary Genocide, dealing with the school to prison pipeline. You need to own that film. There are a number of different organizations that are here today. Also, I want to say that there is a sign-in sheet being passed around. Please, if you did not sign the sign-in sheet, make sure you sign it so you can stay abreast as to what's going on. Yeah, so we have sign-in sheets. We have a number of different individuals from different organizations here. We have the Revolutionary Communist Party. We have the AI. I'm always messing up, but I mess with y'all though. I should know that from the mirror. International Action Center. We have the Malcolm X Grassroots organization. We have a sister in the back that's sticking up some flyers. I don't know what they are, but she's here. You know what I'm saying? We have the Nation of Islam. I represent the FTP movement, and there are a number of different organizations that are here. Kwame Ture, formerly Stokely Carmichael, said that everybody should be a part of an organization. Okay? Malcolm had two when he left the Nation of Islam. Okay? If you're not down with organization, all that, I'm rolling by myself because organizations be tripping. No, you tripping because of the fact that you can get an organization and change it. I'm not talking about the NAACP. My father told me a long time ago, if a building's on fire and there's 14 stories, and 13 of the floors are burning, then you don't douse the flame, you get up out the building. Now, if I offended anybody, that's just too bad. Now, I also want to say, we have our media in the building, People's TV. So I need you to go online and log on because everybody got the cool phones, you're texting people across the room, and say that you can watch the rest of this forum at peopletv.org. Give it up for People's TV for being here. If I'm not mistaken, this is the first time you all are streaming live, is that correct?
Not the first time.
Not the first time, it's the first time you're streaming live. Go ahead, we'll do that. This first, yeah, so first time in that you streaming live. So, and also our brother Watani Shabazz and WRFG. Coming up next, this next brother right here, he's a former political prisoner. He did 19 years on false charges. Our brother Ward Churchill wrote about him and many other folks who were framed by this police state. okay? He is one of the founders of the Black Liberation Army. He's a leader in the Black Panther Party. He's also part of the Panther 21 situation where they attempted to frame him and he got off maybe like 2 days before or something like that. Before they tried it again. He was a co-defendant to Jamal Joseph, Afeni Shakur, Sekou Ding, and a number of other different powerful brothers and sisters. This brother right here has one of the most concrete analysis of our situation, and I have to say that we all need to get behind him. Now, many of you are just getting familiar with him due to the situation in Clayton County, where he was slammed by the Clayton County Police for breaking into his own home. America's a serious place. Georgia's a serious place. A baby's not safe in his crib. A 19-month-old can't be safe in his crib. That's right. And a 69-year-old can't be safe moving into his home. A 92-year-old can't be safe in her house. This is Georgia. Or as they say, Georgia, right? So we are in this really racist state of Georgia. I want y'all to give a strong round of applause for our good brother, Dhoruba Bin Wahad.
First of all, I want to thank everybody who came out tonight, especially people who came out so that we could begin to do some organizing here around this. Let me just say this. I didn't volunteer for this particular role right now. I was kind of like drafted. The police, when they came to my door, they didn't know who I was. I was just another nigger in the community. I was just another person that they used to throw on the ground, pull your pants down, go through your pockets, abuse you, and then tell you to have a good day. You know, Ward Churchill pointed out something very, very crucial that we have to really understand in the beginning of the 21st century. That the police forces of the United States are militarized, and they've been trained to do what they're doing to us now. They are doing their job when they brutalize us. Because the first impact and effect of that brutalization is terror, is intimidation. And then no one wants to be involved with the police. No one wants to be on the wrong side of the police. It's one thing to have civil rights. It's another thing to be able to exercise. That's right. So we need to begin to understand that, as Cynthia pointed out, we have to speak the language that they understand. And the thing that we have to deal with here in Clayton County, and hopefully will become a model across this country, is we have to take control of public safety. We have to have community control of public safety, not reform. We can't change the training, because every officer that killed someone said, according to the procedures and training, he was operating reasonably. It's reasonable to kill a man with a fork, to have 4 officers empty their gun into the hands of a man with a fork in his hand and say that they felt threatened, when on the other hand, they will wait for animal control to come 3 hours for a Bengal tiger. So we need to understand that this is about intimidation. As Ward Churchill pointed out, yesterday it was the war on drugs. Today, every citizen in the United States is a potential terrorist, according to the state. We are all suspects. In fact, when a black man steps out the door, he is under the suspicion of being suspicious, no matter what he does. I was reading with tears in my eyes the number of cases of young black men who were murdered right here in the contiguous counties in Georgia. Murdered by police, unarmed black youth, murdered by police, right here in Clayton County. Within 10 miles of this area, you have almost 7 different separate police departments. You have Griffin Police Department, Monroe Police Department, you have Riverdale Police Department, you have Jonesboro Police Department. And when you look at all of these police departments, they all have brand new cars, brand new equipment, brand new everything. And yet still, last year, with 1.5 inches of snow on the ground, they couldn't get the roads clear. They couldn't get our children out of school. These politicians down here, these black politicians down here have proved the point that it's the institutions that are at fault. And it doesn't make a difference who you put in there. We have to change the nature of the institution. Today we have the slaves running the plantation in Georgia. We have a black chief of police. We have black commissioners. We have a black mayor. We have a black president, and grandmothers are being murdered in their house by the police.
That's right.
So, as was pointed out, you know what time it is. There are organizers in here. There are people in here that we can begin to put together a movement with. So what I want to talk to you about is, how do we address this? Let me just give you an overall view, an overall picture of this. Every police agency that I name operates under a city or municipal charter. Every one of those police departments can be dismantled by law. We have to use the power of the vote that we have left to change the complexion of law enforcement. We have to decentralize the police in Clayton County. And the way we do that is very, very simple. We have to go door to door, register enough people to get on the ballot this year. A program and a measure to decentralize Clayton County Police. Why do we have all these police departments? What was the purpose of Clayton County Police when they came to my door with their guns drawn? I live in Jonesboro. Where was the Jonesboro police? Where were they? We need to understand that the reason why these agencies exist is because of the power of the police unions in this state. The police unions are the ones that have the politicians in their back pocket. That's why every politician gets up and talks about how he's tough on crime, how we have to take back our streets, how these criminals are running amok, and therefore he endorses the type of measures that Sister Cynthia was talking about, purchasing surplus army gear, purchasing tanks, helicopters, and now drones.
That's right.
Our communities have been analyzed over and over again by different professions. And one profession that analyzed our community was the mental health profession. And they found just recently in a survey that people living in the inner cities, in the urban areas of Black America, suffer from post-traumatic stress syndrome. The only difference is the post is off. It's a continuous stress syndrome. All of the features are there. The breakdown, the high blood pressure, the stress, the poor diets. We have to change our environment. And so we are calling on all of the organizations here to participate. I know I'm going to ask Sister Cynthia, because she understands electoral politics, that we have to approach this in a systematic and organized fashion. And one of the proposals that I want to put forward is that we build a coalition right here, right now, with different organizations and different individuals to work to building a referendum for this coming election. The referendum should read, we want public safety to be decentralized. We want to remove this idea of a central police chief, of this police force that's not accountable to us, and make the police accountable to us on a daily basis. We need a residency clause for the police. The police should live in the community that they police, at least for the first 2 or 3 years of their tenure. We need not only a residency clause, we need to understand that we have to elect our public safety servants from amongst us. We need to involve the clergy. We need to involve every institution in our community in bringing forward a progressive public safety plan. And the police should be carrying out this plan. We need to engage our people in their own defense and in their own protection from crime. Make no mistake, this is not an anti-police movement. We know there are people in the streets who prey on other people. We know there are criminals in society. But we have to understand that our children are not criminals by birth. Our children we should not fear on the streets. We have to engage our children, not have them gunned down in the streets because they're suspected of being suspicious. We have to engage in our own public safety. And we could do this systematically from the grassroots up. We have to register enough voters in this city, in this municipality, to get on a referendum decentralization of the Clayton County Police Department. We have to make them understand, and this is the most important part, that they are servants of the people. They are our servants. We pay their salary. And as George Churchill pointed out, and as the other speakers pointed out, the police are not ordinary workers. Their job is not just a job. They are endowed with the power and the capacity to kill you and I. They have the power of life and death over you and I. There is no other civil servant on the planet that has that power. So we have to be very careful of who we entrust that power to. We have to be able to hold them accountable when they go astray. And it's not about training. As the brother pointed out, it's not about training. That's that house, the police would have went in, I might not be here at all.
That's right.
I might have been shot dead with no one for witnesses but the police. But to show you how Allah works, to show you how their ancestors worked, they didn't know who I was, but Allah did. They didn't know that the 69-year-old man that they slammed on the ground was someone who has something to prove, not to anyone but my son. That he would look at this man and say that my father, when the time came, stood up for what was right and forbid what was wrong. We have to be examples to our children. We have to be the best example that we can to our children. We're not perfect. We may not be able to give them everything that we want them to have. We may even fail to give them the type of childhood that we want them to have. But there's one thing we have to try to do, and that's to make this world a little bit better before we leave it. So that what they inherit, they may have something to start with. They may have a chance. The police will not handcuff my 10-year-old boy and not let me do something about it. They cannot murder your children and you don't stand up and do something about it. So, by the mercy of the Creator, they chose me. And when I called up the young brother from the FTP, he's young to me, Kalonji Changa, I said, Kalonji, you know what happened to me? He said, get out of here. I said, yeah, brother, that's what happened. I said, I need a lawyer. He said, call Mawuli. Yes. I said, call Mawuli. He said, yeah, call Mawuli, man. I called the brother. He texted me back in a matter of less than an hour. He said, I'm busy right now, but I'll get back to you. That evening, he called me back. He said, come on in the office and let's talk. Now, Mawuli said to me from the very beginning that we've been fighting this fight. And the community is scared. The community doesn't know what to do. But we've been fighting this fight. Do you know how many people these people have killed? Do you know how many people have brutalized? And we feel like we're fighting it by ourselves, but there's a few of us in this city, Reverend Rice, there's a few of us here from the National Action Network. There's a few organizers here that's been fighting this fight. So we're going to take your case, brother, because we know who you are, what you stood for. We admire you. So we're going to take this case, brother, and we're going to fight this fight. That's all I needed was a team. That's all I needed was someone to get my back. That's all I needed was the brothers, the sisters to step forward that had the courage to say, let's engage this. Let's speak truth to power. Let's let our people make the decision. Do you want to control public safety, or do you want someone else to control your life and intimidate you and terrorize you and intimidate your children? Do you want to control your safety, or do you want someone else to? Do you? Yes. So then we're talking about a simple proposition. We're talking about power to the people. We're talking about power to the people. We're talking about an issue that affects not just black people. It affects people who came here to find a better life, but who are undocumented and who have to walk around with their heads up because they're afraid what the police would do to them when they catch them. We're talking about mothers who don't have no husband, who don't have nothing in the house, and they got a young black kid who's feeling his oats, and he's in his teens, and she don't know what to do with him, and she picks up the phone by accident and calls the police, and now she has a dead son.
That's right.
We're talking about controlling our own destiny here, brothers and sisters. Let's build a movement right here as an example. Let's start right here, right now, at this point in time, and stand up and say we don't want this no more. We're not just talking about reform. We're talking about abolition. We're talking about a new abolitionist movement. We're talking about abolishing policing as we now know it and reconstituting it. If the police chief in Clayton County want to do something, he could resign and become a public safety advisor, a professional advisor to this new campaign to get his job. Because we are after his job. Not because we dislike him, but because we cannot let slaves run a plantation anymore. We've been off the plantation for over 150 years. So we have a concrete plan. And this meeting here is just the beginning of it. We want to sign up those organizations who will come to the next community meeting. We want to canvass our community and get people to come forward who've been abused by the police. Once we document this stuff, once we get all of this stuff together, then we'll be able to take it to professionals, and we hope the elected officials, and ask them, why aren't you speaking on this issue during this crucial mid-year term? We haven't heard one black politician talk about these murders of black kids. We haven't heard one of them say they're going to get to the bottom of this. We got people running for district attorney's offices, for commissioner, for county commissioners, for mayors, and none of them talk about this issue as if it doesn't exist. And judges. So one of the things we have to talk about is forming a political club. We need to form political clubs. Let's start one right here, right now. We ain't Democrat, we ain't Republican, we pro-human. We pro-human rights. We pro-our rights. We pro-constitutional rights. We pro-self-defense. We pro-being human beings and exercising our right to self-determination. Start our own political action committee right here. And make them come through here when they want your vote and tell us, what are you going to do about this issue? How are you going to behave on this issue? This starts right now at the grassroots with you and me, with our brothers and sisters. If we have one felony, one person in here with a felony, that person has a family. And that person may have 2 or 3 other people. There's brothers right now in the Georgia prison system who have family. But when the census comes through here and they count the people in the community, they don't count him because he's in the prison. They count him in the population where the prison is at. And the prison is where the crackers is at. The prison is in the rural areas. So they get the funding, they get the population grant, and you don't get nothing. It's estimated that fully 5% of the African American vote in the black community is lost to those who have been incarcerated and under civil prohibition for in terms of their civil rights, their ability to vote. 5%. How many elections have we lost with much less than that margin? Cynthia pointed out, and I didn't know, they got the largest black caucus in Georgia. I didn't even know Georgia had a black caucus. We were sitting there shaking our head. We said, they got a black caucus? Not only do you got one, you got the biggest one in the country. If this isn't a case of the slaves running the plantation, I don't know what it is. So how can we have this huge black caucus and have the most brutal prison system in the country? The suicide rate in the Georgia prison system is far and away ahead of any other state, including Texas, where they execute people on a regular basis. So this is our cause. This is our fight. This is a fight that we could win. This is a fight that we can take. They tell us right now that the way you change your enemy's army, the way you change their violence against you, is to cut off the head, is to take control or destroy their command and control structure. The command and control structure that brings brutality into our community on a regular basis, that terrorizes us, is in the ballot box. It's at our fingertips, and we could change it. And when we begin to launch this campaign, brothers and sisters, watch the police union come out of the woodwork. Watch the police union come out to defend these murderers and these brutal people. It was the police union, fear the police union, why those cops that killed that boy in December got away. It's fear of the police union that keeps us in this type of situation. They don't want a residency clause. They don't want to live where they police. They want to come into our community and brutalize us and then go out to these nice communities and where their children go to school and they can live in harmony and peace. We have to take this to them. The police that do these things in our community, we need to organize bus services to their house. We need to camp out on their lawn. We need to camp out on their lawn in rotation. We need to shame them in their churches. We need to shame them in their places of work. We need to be on them. We need to make their lives and the lives of their family miserable until we get justice.